Good morning, Maris Grove, and welcome to Through the Lens for Tuesday, March 5th. We have a very interesting program for you this morning. My name is Marian Ellis. I will be your host. With me as a guest is Rochelle, Christopher. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, which is history. Rochelle is going to give a presentation in the lecture series. I love the title, 10 Unforgettable Stories That History Forgot. And the presentation is going to be Thursday, this coming Thursday, March 7th at 2:30 p.m. So good morning, Rochelle, and welcome.
Good morning, Marian. Thank you so much for having me.
Now, we like to get to know who we're talking to, so give us a little background on yourself, where you're from. And
I was born and raised in Philadelphia. I have a daughter who is 25 years old, been married for 27 years, graduated Girls High, graduated Drexel University. And I love history. I'm an independent historian. My company, Victorian Vanities, teaches people about American history. That's what we do.
Wonderful. When did your love of history begin? But I'm gathering what you said, it was kind of always there.
Always there, yes.
Did you?
Go ahead.
Did you have good history teachers in school?
I had excellent history teachers. I think when I was in high school, I had two. One taught American History 1, which was all facts, remembering dates and things. The second one, though, made me do a term paper on Harlem. It was called Anatomy of a Ghetto. And it was all an independent study project, and I thought, okay, I'm ready. I can do history for the rest of my life. At
Wonderful.
That point, yes.
Yes, I love it. I just took every history course I could possibly take. So what are your favorite periods of history to study?
My specialty is the Victorian era, actually. When I left the insurance industry, I thought by that time I was already a member of the Dickens Fellowship here in Philadelphia, which is the oldest fellowship in the United States. And I thought I would love nothing better than to make Victorian recreation clothing. Leave me alone, let me sew, do clothing. That's what I was going to do.
Oh.
And that's where I started, pretty much. So Victorian history is my own specialty. However, I'll study anything. I do enjoy studying the Civil War, studying World War I, World War II, and studying primarily, for me, American Victorian history. 1867 to about 1914 is my favorite time period. And I'm a specialist on that.
Who would have been the market for your Victorian clothing?
Generally people in Cape May, people who are members of the Victorian Society, reenactors, things like that. Didn't work out as well as I would have liked, but I still maintain an interest in the Victorian era. That's my favorite period.
I think it's a fascinating time, yes.
It is. It's actually the beginning of the industrial era in the United States. It is the time when the United States actually started to develop its own culture. And for that, it makes it an exciting period to study. It was not, by the time we got to the end of the Civil War, we were not relying on Britain anymore for our culture. So it becomes a period of time where you look at it and say, okay, how did this affect that? Where does the United States come in? Where do we come up with our own culture? And generally you find it starting in that time period.
Oh my, that's interesting. I've never looked at it like that before. How did you come to specialize in unusual and bizarre history?
Actually, we needed, my company was started in 2008, and we needed a hook. Everybody in the Philadelphia area studies the Revolutionary War.
That's true.
And there's nothing that distinguishes, the question became, how does one distinguish oneself if everybody's studying the Revolutionary War, if everybody is studying slavery? And the answer was, you come up with something different. What is the story? You can always get the story about Benjamin Franklin and whomever. You go to the Independence Hall, you go to the Liberty Bell. What story you cannot get, though, is the unusual story. How a playwright, a slave, and a spy saved the American Revolution. Or what is strange. Philadelphia has a lot of just strange things, a lot of strange history that people don't know about. And that became our hook. My husband and I are both into the weird and the strange. So we look for strange and unusual history.
Now, when you were forming your company, the company
Victorian Vanities, yes.
Was it for the purpose of doing this in public and presenting it to people? Was that the idea? Were you going to write anything, or did you want to perform?
I had never planned to write. It was really to do performance. It was to do, for the last 5 years, we've been performing for children. We have a summer program called Tom and Huck Go to Camp, which we have been doing in playgrounds and summer camps throughout the Delaware Valley.
Really?
Starting last year was when we started our adult program called Step Back in Time. And that is a program designed primarily for adults. Currently, we only do retirement communities. We're hoping to increase our venues, to do libraries, historical societies, and that sort of thing. Okay.
Is it just you? Or do you have a cast?
No, actually, I have a second speaker, a man who has been in the antiques business for the last 40 years.
How interesting.
We do an antiques roadshow type of show. He will appraise antiques. I have, during the summer, when I work with the playgrounds, I have not only him, but a co-op student or volunteer who works with us. The three of us go out to a job in order to teach children. So I do bring on more people as needed throughout the year, but most of the time it's me.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is the difference between a presentation and a lecture?
A lecture is a lecture is a program you do in front of people. People are not expected to interact with you at all. They hear the information. They may or may not respond in some way. They may sleep. They may do whatever. A presentation, though, you are expected to interact with the speaker. You're expected to talk. The speaker will ask questions. Very often people have things to say about our programs. We do one in the show that we're doing on Thursday, 10 Unforgettable Stories That History Forgot. There is a story about the Peshtigo fire, which happened on the same day as the Great Chicago Fire. I ran into a couple from Peshtigo at one of the communities at which I was, and they say that the fire still defines the town. I've never met anybody from Peshtigo.
That's the name of a town in Pennsylvania?
It's the name of a town in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin.
And the day of the Chicago fire, October the 8th, 1871, there was a larger fire in Peshtigo. It killed more people.
Wow.
Peshtigo is the largest It is the conflagration that killed more people by fire than any other fire in the United States before or since.
Including the shirtwaist factory fire in Nutley?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. It killed between 1,200 and 2,500 people.
My word.
Yes. It was a terrible, terrible fire.
Oh, I would say so. And so that's kind of the little tidbits and things we're going to get in this lecture,
yes,
is that it?
That is exactly right.
Okay, so what motivated you to develop the presentation, this presentation?
When we did the research for the Step Back in Time program, we talked to residents in retirement communities in this area, and we said, what programs would you come out for? I looked at a list of programs that I thought would be interested in doing, and then asked people, would you be interested in this? Would you be interested in that? And the answer for this program was always yes. I never dreamed this would become my most popular program.
Huh.
Truly.
What other programs do you have?
We have about 20 programs.
Oh, wow.
We do one which is an Antiques Roadshow program. We do a program called Shipwrecked, which is a program about shipwrecks off the coast of New Jersey. We do a very popular program in October called Grave Hopping, which is looking at stones and cemetery use. We do a program called 10 Astounding Actions Earning a Medal of Honor, which is my favorite program. We do a program on Weird Pennsylvania. We do a program on Weird Philadelphia. We have some new programs coming out just this month. One is called Unlikely Allies, how a playwright, a spy, and a merchant saved the American Revolution. We have one on the 1876 centennial. We have a program called Wicked Philadelphia, which is 4 stories about vice and corruption in the city of brotherly love. We do all sorts of programming.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
And tell us about your studies. And I see that you have a degree in historic preservation.
I do. As of May of this year, I am getting my certificate in historic preservation from Bucks County Community College. Only 2 schools in this area do that type of designation. It is University of Pennsylvania's Graduate School and Bucks
Really?
County. Yes, it is my internship for Bucks to do this program was to create this adult program. The hook on this was every time I do a program, I'm preserving American history. People have a desire, a need to want to learn about American history, to learn not so much what they didn't get in school, but more, they don't need to know about Benjamin Franklin. It's nice to know about Silas Deane. It's nice to know about the Peshtigo fire.
We need more history for people around, in my opinion.
Yes, I believe we do.
Yes, and you do have a degree from Drexel University. You didn't mention that.
I have a degree from Drexel in home economics, actually in marketing. I went to Girls High. History has always been an interest of mine. My daughter wants to study archaeology. So it runs in the family, more or less.
And your husband, I gather, enjoys it also?
He does enjoy it very much. He's been helping me he helps me put together some of the presentations. He also is an excellent photographer, and many of my pictures come from things that he's taken.
Oh, okay. So you use multimedia and interactive in the presentation, so tell us about that.
Yes. Very often, that show will include not only just my talking to you, but also pictures and short clips, songs. I happen to think it's a lot easier to remember things if you hear them in song. So I always look for those things. With the Centennial program, with the Antiques Roadshow program, we actually have artifacts we bring. I bring artifacts from the Centennial. I bring artifacts. My second speaker brings artifacts from, we do a show on costume jewelry and a show on glitter. He brings artifacts. He brings things that he's come across. I do my...
What kind of artifacts?
He will bring costume jewelry, which he will appraise. He will ask other people to bring pieces which they want to appraise. He will bring, as an antiques dealer, he has a collection. Generally, the only show that I use artifacts for at this moment is the Centennial show. It is the one where I have the best collection. But I will use movies, I will use song, I will use whatever will help someone remember the presentation better.
Oh yeah, and they will with that.
Oh yes.
Yes. Do you ever do clothing of any kind, like Victorian clothing?
Actually, I do. I have a small collection of Victorian clothing. At Christmas time, when I did retirement communities, I came dressed in period costume. For the 1876 show that we do, I come dressed I come dressed ready to go to the Centennial.
Oh. The Centennial in Chicago.
The Centennial in Philadelphia.
In Philadelphia? What?
Yes.
Oh my! That's right. 1876.
1876.
Centennial Chicago was another date.
Yes.
That's right. I should have thought Philadelphia.
Yes.
So how do you do your research? Is it tough to discover forgotten history?
Research always starts on the internet.
Right.
After that, it can go to books, it can go to newspaper articles, it can go to, I maintain a rather large library of history, both local and national. Since American history is my thing, I have my own library that I go to. Generally, though, it will start on the internet. A lot of time is spent searching the internet. The internet is a wonderful thing. You can put in weird stories and come up with all sorts of things.
You don't have a specific idea. You just go on and think and look for something and say, gee, that looks good. I'm going to try that.
Yes, pretty much.
Well,
what we did find when we did the research for this program is that people in retirement communities, older people, have certain patterns when they come looking for types of history that they're interested in. We will not do depressing stories. We will not do stories. A lot of people want to know about 20th century history. They're not really interested in Victorian history. They do want to know about Revolutionary War history. But they're not really interested in things that are not interesting. Certain aspects of wars we don't do. Certain aspects of different types of things. For example, we looked at, people don't really want to hear about sinkholes. They don't really want to hear about fatwas. They don't really want to hear about terrible things. So we don't do those things. And when I look at, will someone like this presentation, I keep those items in mind when I'm creating a presentation.
Do you do any on wars or battles or anything like that?
I do, actually. I do a presentation called 10 Little Known Events in World War II. I do 10 Astounding Actions Earning a Medal of Honor. Generally, most men and women get their medals of honor in wars. I do one on, I don't do any on the Civil War just yet. I do 2 on the Revolutionary War. That seems to be something people are interested in. In the program we're doing on Thursday, there is a story from the Revolutionary War, someone you may not ever have heard of, Dr. Joseph Warren. 14 United States counties have states named after him, and yet his name is barely heard. Have you heard of him?
No.
Okay. Well then, that'll be a new one for you.
Yes, it will.
Yes, it will.
Okay, now you mentioned your company, Victorian Vanities.
Yes.
Tell us about the company and how you really started it, and what motivated you. And you know, I know you were in another career, and you know, what did you wake up one day and said, that's enough, I want to do something else?
Pretty much, yes. I used to sell insurance. I have a chartered life underwriter designation and a chartered financial consultants designation. I sold to the insurance industry. I sold annuities. I taught my company, I taught other agents how to sell certain types of annuities. And I was good at it. One day, woke up, decided I don't want to do this anymore. And I thought, leave me alone. What I want to do is sew. That's all I want to do. I want to sew.
Okay.
I want to sew Victorian recreation clothing.
Okay.
And that's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I would sew it for people in Cape May, for reenactors. Didn't work as well as I thought. Found there was no money in sewing custom-made clothing. I bounced around a little bit, did dressing for shows, did some union work. Finally, in 2008, I opened this company, Victorian Vanities, with the intention of teaching people about American history. We taught We started by teaching children. We started by going into playgrounds and summer camps in the Delaware Valley and teaching children about American history. We've done that with some success for the last 5 years. And last year we started teaching adults. There is a difference. I relate better to adults. The second speaker that I have relates better to children, you know, or relates as well to children as he does to adults.
Any age children, young or teenagers?
We did middle school. We did fourth grade roughly, third, fourth, and fifth grade. We did 6 to 12. Not really teenagers at all. The other thing we found was we were not prepared to do children with special needs. We only dealt with children. We are still doing the summer program, but on a much more limited basis than we used to. And were they receptive? They were. The children were. We were able to change lives with the children's programs.
Really?
We were able to give children more confidence in what they were doing. We had one little boy who had never done origami before, and when he was introduced to it, just took to it like a duck to water. Before that, he had never seen himself as able to do things like architecture or advanced mathematics before. When you take that sort of thing out of schools, you take out the associated science and math that goes with it, and that's really quite it's quite a misfortune for the schools.
Yes,
it really is. Don't get me started on doing the education thing for children.
No, me neither.
Truly, I have a lot to say about it. I have a lot of feelings about it, and it's actually better for me to be teaching adults. I don't have that guilt and baggage that comes with it.
I think in the schools, it's when they go to the budget cuts, the first thing they cut is creativity of any kind.
It is. It is.
Yes.
And it just.
Yes.
I can't tell you how
angry it gets me. That's another program.
That is another program, yes.
We have touched on all your presentations, and about how many, I'm not sure you told us how many.
We run about 20 at any one time,
okay.
Yes.
And how often do you do them? How often do you do them?
I manage to do about one a day. For the month of March, I have about 20 different programs scheduled.
Wow.
I'm on the phone when I'm not working in the field. I'm marketing to activities directors at retirement communities. Last year, as part of my internship, I did 57 programs.
Wow.
So far this year, I have scheduled about, I lost count, somewhere between 50 and 60 in the first 6 months of this year.
Wow. Well, this is about one a day.
It is about one a day. I go to retirement communities and do a program.
Are there that many of them? Do you go, I'm taking it, you go to other states and things and do these?
I don't go to that many. We only do about 15 counties in the surrounding areas. We do 5 counties in Pennsylvania. We do 6 counties in New Jersey. We do 1 county in Delaware. The limiting factor is how long does it take me to get to these places. And if I can get there in less than an hour and a half, then I'm there. So, you know, I've done Ann's Choice. I've done many of the retirement communities in the local area. So most people know who I am by now, and I'm still doing them.
Right. Now, we did talk about your age groups and how the experience differed.
Yes.
And, of course, you tailor your presentation to
always.
Yes.
Always.
And your artifacts and things, I would imagine, and would change or not.
Not really.
No.
My own personal collection are fans, paper fans, and everyone loves to look at those. I have tickets and guidebooks from the Centennial. Everyone loves to see, and I've got textiles from the Centennial. Everyone loves to see artifacts, and it doesn't really matter how old the person is. When it comes to what my second speaker brings in the way of antiques, one of the things that I require that he bring with him are things that can be touched.
I was just going to ask you that. Can people come up and actually touch them?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And one of the things we look for when we buy antiques and artifacts are that they can be touched.
Right.
And or we don't use them.
Right.
You know,
so in a big auditorium, how do you do that? Do you pass them out, or do they can?
I will generally pass them. If there's we'll put up a table with artifacts on it that people can come look at. When we do the Centennial Show, we are also running a reel of pictures. So people can do anything they want to do. They can look at pictures, they can look at artifacts, they can look at whatever is around in order to look at. They can ask me about my costume if I'm wearing one. It becomes a do what you want to do to get the most out of it routine.
That sounds great.
Yes.
So after participating in your presentations, what do you want your audiences to take with them?
What I want most people to take away on Thursday is the fact that people remember history. Different people, what is it that we remember about history? For example, we will do a show where the Peshtigo fire was larger than the Chicago fire, yet people don't remember the Peshtigo fire because of the Chicago fire happening on the same day. The other story we do is one on the wreck of the Sultana. The Sultana was the largest maritime disaster in United States history. Larger than the Titanic, larger than any other maritime disaster in the United States. Yet no one remembers it because the day before, John Wilkes Booth was assassinated.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So no one remembers that. The larger story also happened on the same day. And yet, in truth, if you look at what was the larger story, it was these other stories that were forgotten. So what I want people to take away is a meditation on what it is that we remember about history. Another example is the story of Elian Gonzalez, the little boy, 5 years old. You know, I don't remember the details, and yet at the time that was happening, that was a very important story. You have to look at who's giving you these stories. What will we remember 20 years from now, 50 years from now? Will it be that story, or will it be something more important? And what should we be remembering is just as important.
Okay, so what do you enjoy most about discovering forgotten history? Did you when you read one of these things, you get a kick out of it and say, "Wow, this is."
I do. Many people will remember Paul Harvey, who would tell you the rest of the story, and he would do essentially that. He would tell you a forgotten story, and then at the end he would say, "And now you know the rest of the story." And the truth was, yes, now you know the rest of the story. He is actually featured in one of the stories I tell on Thursday. That is what I like. There's like, who knew that? Who knew that story? Or who knew that one?
Neat.
And it's a certain discovery. I didn't know that. Again, anybody can get the main story. We all know the story about Benjamin Franklin being our emissary to Paris during the Revolutionary War. But do we know the story about Silas Deane?
I know Silas Deane.
You do?
Yes.
Unusual.
Yes.
Most people don't.
Yes, he had a major part in the war.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. As a matter of fact, for that presentation, I just found CIA documents, declassified CIA documents that talk about him.
Oh, my.
And I thought, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because as I'm doing the research for that presentation, I'm like, oh, who knew?
Well,
or, you know,
I would say, Rochelle, that you have whet our appetite for this presentation you're going to give on Thursday, March 7th at 2:30 p.m.
Well,
in our auditorium. 10, I have to read this right now, 10 unforgettable stories that history forgot.
Yes.
And your enthusiasm, I think, will be wonderful. So what would you like to say to our audience to get them to come? Oh, now, come on.
Just come. Come and see, enjoy. I'm sure you'll love it.
I'm sure you will love it, too. And any other little thing you want to add? What are you going to, are you doing something today besides this?
Actually, yes. I am going to Brandywine Senior Living at Pennington today. We're doing the 1876 Centennial Show. I will be doing it in costume.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss that. That sounds great.
It is, and it is the debut of a new show. It is the first time I will be doing it, so I'm always excited when I do a new show.
Yes, you'll have to come back and show us that one.
I will have to do that, yes.
Yes, you will.
Thank you again for having me.
Well, thank you so much for coming, and
welcome.
Don't forget, Maris Grove, Thursday, March 7th, 2:30 p.m., and thank you for watching, and have a good day.
Fancy word for tag. This phrase is nice, so we'll sing it twice.